capturing headlines and the public's imagination, the world's mightiest military leaders were put on a state of red alert.
There have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
The potential threat was perceived so grave that if it proved to be real, it would cause chaos and mass panic.
I saw this brilliant object. It was quite low in the sky.
From 20 million light years away.
I don't know what to think, but it's so unusual, we've got to carry on investigating.
Visitors from another world.
So I believe that some of them will prove to be of interplanetary origin.
And they come in peace.
I think that some of them may be friendly and some may not.
Or would they be our greatest foe?
How many people here tonight are afraid of the thing?
Secret government investigations into these matters are only now being made public. Deep beneath the Public Records Office lie thousands of previously unseen government files.
Recently, there's been a dramatic increase in the number of old UFO documents coming forward into the public domain. Over the past few years, we've seen the release of documents which at the time had been classified top secret on UFOs. Now, this sounds like it's something straight out of the X-Files.
These top secret files contain details of extensive investigations carried out into the flying saucer phenomenon.
With a few exceptions, all the intelligence agencies who released these documents hitherto denied having any involvement or any documentation on UFO investigations.
With the release of this information into the public domain, the truth about the British government's involvement is finally about to be revealed.
In 1943, aircraft from Bomber Command encountered small balls of light and in some cases metallic discs while on raids over Germany.
The Ministry of Defense denied any interest in the pilot's sightings. Released files reveal, however, that behind closed doors, they believed they could be evidence of some Nazi secret weapon.
There was speculation early on, after 1947, 1948, when the early rush of UFOs were appearing in the States, on the basis of, well, if they could produce V1 and V2 so far ahead of our technology, our rocket technology, could they have gone on to build flying saucers? It was generally speaking under the auspices of the SS that people were supposedly planning and building these devices. It seems that in the 1950s, the SS was as powerful a term as it is now. They could be responsible for anything dangerous or risky, but they would have the funds and the drive to make it happen.
Intelligence pointed towards the Nazi development of an extraordinary form of circular flying craft. These were claimed to have been manufactured by slave laborers under the guidance of one of Hitler's greatest scientific minds.
An Austrian by the name of Victor Schauberger. He was approached by a group of German engineers and scientists in 1943 for parts of his research. The Germans were very interested in something that he'd developed.
There have been various sort of semi-biographical works of him in which what appear to have been parts of a turbine he designed were photographed with a sort of Nazi insignia on them, and these were put around as being proof that the Nazis designed flying saucers.
On one occasion it's rumoured that this device actually shot up 30 foot into the air and crashed through his laboratory ceiling. Schauberger is convinced that the flying saucers that people report today and in the 40s were based on his work.
There are those who doubt that a Nazi flying saucer program ever existed, but the files show that after the war, intelligence was gathered on individuals suspected of being associated with such a project.
The documents involving the scientists are real, and all these people were associated with the project. It's another indication that you know, something real was happening there.
Informants cited in the files claimed that towards the end of the war, the flying saucer project was moved to aerodromes on the outskirts of Germany and Czechoslovakia.
I interviewed a chap who you to take spare parts to Prague-Belly. Now, he told me in one of the hangars he actually witnessed this particular aircraft, which he said it was so light you could actually push it around. There was nothing under the ground, it was actually hovering. A couple of years later, this intelligence officer telephoned me and said that there was a chap who used to be actually based at Prague-Belly. And one summer's afternoon, he and a few of his colleagues were out on the aerodrome and looked across approximately a quarter of a mile away. And there, the doors of a hangar opened, and what he described as this aeroplane was actually pushed on to the runway. It was approximately 25 feet in diameter. It had some sort of glass cockpit, like a dome, and he said he could see the thing rotating. I asked him, you know, could you see propellers or jets, and he said no.
Even after the war, the government continued to investigate the Reich's alleged UFO program. The fear was that parties with sinister motives were eager to ensure that the dream of Nazi supremacy could continue to be promoted through the idea of technological superiority.
We've definitely got traces here of people with political interests preaching this idea that there were Nazi flying saucers, that they did great things, that the Nazis had technology way superior to ours and the Americans, but they just didn't quite have time to use it before the end of the war. There are claims that they'd flown to the moon and Mars before the end of the war. Hopefully nobody very much believes them, but again they emit from people associated with a very extreme right-wing group in Austria and with bits of the Patriot movement in the States.
The transfer of German scientists into America after the war also led to the transfer of scientific secrets. One of the most remarkable projects of the post-war American military bears a striking resemblance to Hitler's flying saucers.
I'm absolutely convinced, at least parts of the German project was taken for the Avro car.
The Avro car was a Canadian-US Air Force joint venture to produce a flying disc, the propulsion system of which would eventually form the basis of the vertical lift-off Harrier jump jet. By the 1950s, the government was certain that they could identify the Nazi flying saucers as little more than exotic engineering projects. But a far greater concern were the unidentified flying objects, the explanation for which was truly out of this world.